Let's begin by understanding the emotional impact of COVID and how that can interfere and what we can do to promote good diabetes care during this time. As a psychologist, I'd like to emphasize the point that if you can understand what you're experiencing, you can work with it. And my job really is to help people with that understanding. So what do we know about what we're all experiencing at this time? And we know that there is impact on our mental health following any kind of a disaster, any kind of a traumatic type of experience. And it's fair to describe COVID as having a world impact on everybody. And you can see from this slide that there are actually phases to how people are impacted by something like this. And you see the pre-disaster phase. And maybe you can remember in January and February when we were hearing, okay, what was happening, what's coming. It was from China. Okay, now it's in Europe. Okay, now it's hitting North America. You have the impact stage. And then we kind of got down to work and we went through this, what we call heroic stage. And you heard a lot of what we did during that time. And you know, Canada was kind of known for capturing the phrase caremongering because it was in the context of scaremongering that was happening. And so we sort of showed ourselves well. But then you kind of you kind of go through this coasting time, we call it the honeymoon stage, and then disillusionment. And do you remember all the protests that started happening in the United States? Well, that was the disillusionment phase happening. And then reconstruction. And so this is the natural pathway. The challenge that we face is, are we done? And so, you know, we all are in some phase of reopening. And now the next question is, really, what is next? We talk about the new normal, but let's be honest, a new normal is actually not normal. It wasn't the way it was before. It's some kind of new. And so that's challenging for us all. What if there's a second wave? What happens if we end up having to kind of go back inside just as we're beginning to go outside? A lot of uncertainty. And we'll see in this slide, I've kind of indicate three really psychological experiences. And these are actually normal psychological experiences that match the situation. What happens to people when they feel threat? What happens to people when they experience losses? What happens to people when they experience injustice? And we know what's happening right now in the United States regarding race, this injustice that's being identified and the reaction that everybody is having to that. And so when I show you this slide, I'd like you to take away that these experiences are normal experiences to what's actually happening in life. And so now the question becomes, what can we do about those? What we can know about COVID is that it's a stress. Humans like routine. We get into habits, we get into patterns. This is how we live our lives. It just becomes easier if we do things that are on kind of automatic pilot. But we don't do them just automatically. We also grow to become comfortable in them. So we have our favorite route to drive to work. We stop at our favorite coffee shop, order a coffee in the way that we like it. And this makes our lives comfortable, and it really makes our lives actually functional. But guess what? We're not driving to work anymore. We're actually not going into coffee shops. And so all of a sudden, nothing is normal, and that is stressful because we don't know what to do. And so you can see on this slide that there's kind of this curve. You can see that red line. It's the inverted U. And this is a very classic understanding of the relationship between stress and function. And so COVID is a big stress that everybody is being affected by rather. And then as stress goes up, function actually goes up. You kind of get to work, you get to action. But if it gets too high, then it becomes negative and it starts to interfere with function. So this is an important point for us all to reflect on as we navigate through this pandemic. As you live with diabetes through this pandemic, how are you on this stress curve? And again, remember, if you can describe what's happening, then you can do something about it. So it's not good or bad if you're feeling stressed. It's what's actually experienced. And we have reasons to be stressed. I mean, we all got bubbled up 10, 11 weeks ago. And that kind of changed things quite a bit, because for many of us, this meant we were kind of inside when we had lived our world on the outside. And when we did go outside, all of a sudden, it's not very normal. Canadians are friendly and helpful. You're in the grocery store and somebody drops something on the floor. You reach down and pick it up for them. Well, no, now you don't. Now you look at people and it's like, get away from me. And so we can see that it's actually really, really challenging for us all. And there are predictable impacts of these kind of stresses.